In 2008, 8 different hospitals implemented a simple checklist with the overall goal to cut down on surgical-related deaths. The results? The checklist helped reduce deaths by 47% in those 8 hospitals. So how can a simple checklist help your business? Let's get into it. Welcome back for another episode of Theory of Why. My name is Rob Johnson. So today's episode is going to be relatively short. I want to talk to you about this book called The Checklist Manifesto. Now, there's a couple of things that drove this video for me. One, I've always been a big proponent of checklists and having these action plans and all of these things. And this goes back to the earlier concepts of our company where we used a tool called Todoist, which is still in existence. It's excellent. Unfortunately, we just outgrew it. But checklists have always been, for me, one of the ways to ensure that people are accountable and to ensure that we know what's happening within inside of our company. And as time has gone on, we've implemented larger scale applications like Asana, and recently we've transitioned over to ClickUp. And this idea of having a checklist, having a goal list, having KPIs that we can review and report on and follow up on, all of these things have just made our company better. But what is the science behind a checklist? Well, quite honestly, the human brain is as such. If you get terribly overwhelmed, you forget things, even things that are important. It's the same reason that parents, forget, they might forget to go pick up their kid. It's not that they don't like their kid, hopefully. Hopefully they do, but you get confused. You lose track of time. You get bombarded, and especially in today's day and age, the average person picks up their phone 150 times a day. The average person gets 800 notifications. They see roughly 10,000 advertisements in a given week-long period. So you have all of these different things flying at your brain. It's common to forget things. Hopefully the important things you remember, but quite honestly, if you have several important things coming in at once, how do you keep track of what it is you're doing? Now, for me, it's always been the power of this checklist concept. And what caught my attention was, back before I did this, I used to work in the hospital, and that was a big part of my life for probably 7 years, almost 7 years. And so when I first read this book called The Checklist Manifesto, the first illustration they give is that the World Health Organization in 2007 commissioned a project for these checklists to be rolled out within hospitals. And the results were 36% of complications were reduced by 36%, and surgical-related deaths were cut by 47%, just by simply having this checklist that the circulating nurse would go through and make sure that you have the right patient, we have all of the right tools in place, we have the right medicine on board, we're operating on the right side of the body. And that's why, if you've ever been into surgery, and if you ever have, let's say, hand surgery, they ask you, what hand are we doing the surgery on? And I'll never forget, my mom, when I was younger, she had to go in for a surgery. And before she went in, I was in pre-op with her. They had came in and they said, so what are you doing today? Or what are we doing for you? And she was like, well, don't you know? Don't you know what you should be doing for me today? And that always made me laugh. But the reason they asked that is to make sure that what you're telling them that you're planning on having done is what they have on the surgical log. Just like right before you're in the operating room, before they put you under, they confirm, so long as you're, alert and oriented, they confirm what side of the body they're going to be cutting on. And all of this might seem really elementary, but surgeons might have 12 to 14 cases a day, if not more. So they have so many patients rolling in. A simple checklist to make sure that you have the right patient, we're doing the right procedure, we have the right medicine on board. All of these things can help reduce incidents. It's not as though surgeons are trying to mess up. But if you have so many things coming at you at once, having a simple checklist in place can really help you. And this is the same thing for your business. One of the most common reasons that businesses fail is because of poor communication to recurring clients. So you might tell someone, if you're a contractor, yeah, we're going to have this done on this date, and then you have 4 other clients that you're working for and you're giving them deadlines and none of it's written down, it's all remembered. Well, then you slip a timeline, you forget, and then the client gets upset and they want to leave. If you had a system where all this was written down and you could follow through on it, that would make the business much more effective. And that's what I realized in the beginning, and this is why we implemented Todoist and then eventually moved on to ClickUp, where we're at now. But if we don't have things written down in a way that's tactical, it's not going to be helpful for anybody. We can't hold anybody accountable. Everyone's just going off of their memory or a sticky note. And if you're managing 10 clients and you have a ton of different sticky notes, like, it's just not a really clean way to work. So for me, the Checklist Manifesto is such an important book. And the other thing about it is it's not terribly long. It's just under 200 pages. But it can absolutely make a major difference in your business. One of the ways that I operate and how I organize my day is we use ClickUp. So all the major client tasks that I'm working on are in there. But I also carry with me a small field notes book. And inside of that book is all of the non-client related tasks or one-off tasks that I need to follow up on for the day. So typically at the end of the day or midway through the day, I flip through that book. And things I can't get to, I highlight, because that means to me they're overdue. And the things that I have done, I check off. But it's a really good way to measure what you've done in any given day. Because if you're like me, you might have gotten to the end of your day before and you're like, man, I feel like I've done absolutely nothing, and you have no way to measure what it is you've done. Where if these things are written down and checked off, you have a very easy way to go back through and see what it is you've done. So to me, businesses need more organization. They need systems in place, project management tools. All of these things can do nothing but make your company better. So how do you do that? Well, you start off by mirroring your process on paper. So follow someone that does something within your company and then write down the steps, turn it into a procedure, and then turn that procedure into a daily check that someone does, and then repeat that throughout the company. You don't want people just clicking off tasks just to click them off. That's absolutely silly. But you need to have proper checks and balances in place so people can make sure that they're doing the things that are important, and it's not just lost somewhere in an inbox or on a sticky note on someone's desk. There needs to be a definitive plan behind those things. And if you don't have one, you don't have anything. Right? There's no way to measure and track, especially as your company gets bigger, you hire more people. How are you keeping individuals accountable? How are they checking in to make sure that they're doing what they ought to be doing? In my previous job, I had a daily check sheet about 3 pages long that I had to go through every day to make sure I didn't miss things. And even though I was there almost 8 years, and this was after the hospital, I still would forget things on the daily check sheet, like just from my memory, going off of memory. I'd be like, oh yeah, I do need to do this one small task. So it just helps make things better. It helps make organizations more efficient. So if you haven't yet, I highly recommend you check out this book, The Checklist Manifesto, How to Get Things Right. And then if you are looking for a really simple tool, this isn't a sponsored part of the video or anything, but Todoist is an excellent program. But you can even use something like I like the manual pen and paper for these one-off tasks, and then we have a bigger system for the bigger things. But whatever is going to keep you organized, whatever is going to keep you consistent. But I've noticed if I don't keep a running daily sheet of what I ought to be working on, I'm going to get lost. I'm going to feel like I'm not being productive, and I'm going to feel like my day is aimless. Whereas if I have things in front of me that I need to accomplish and I can hammer on, I'm much better, I'm much more productive. So be thinking about those things as as you're continuing to grow your business and implement these systems. Start small, measure, and grow. That's the absolute best advice I can give you for how to implement these systems. So hopefully that's helpful. Check out the book. Again, I highly recommend it. Appreciate you watching this week's edition. Take care.